Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are talking about the most important sections in literary criticism, and today we are taking on chapter 14, which is Deconstruction Unlocked. So are you ready? Let's begin. Let's decode something that often scares students at first: deconstruction. Now don't worry, it's not about destroying a text, as the word might suggest. Instead, it's about questioning whether meaning is ever stable in the first place. This approach was introduced by Jacques Derrida in his groundbreaking book of grammatology, published in 1967. Derrida shook the world of philosophy and literature by declaring, "There is nothing outside the text," and pause here, because this line was asked in exam, so you must note it carefully. What does this mean? It means that meaning is not anchored outside language, not fixed in some stable reality, but comes alive only through the play of words themselves. Can you recall how Ferdinand de Saussure had earlier said that words signify by difference, not by pointing to some essence? Derrida builds on this idea and tells us that language is never stable. Opposites like speech and writing, presence and absence, male and female, these are not fixed hierarchies. To deconstruct means to expose how such binaries are shaky and how texts may even betray themselves. Now here's the golden trick. Derrida coined the term difference, spelt with an A, to describe how meaning is always deferred, never fully present. That's why when you read a novel today and then read it again 20 years later, you don't find the same meaning. Meaning keeps shifting, and that's the very essence of deconstruction. Pause here and note this down. Deconstruction is not a hunt for one true interpretation. Instead, it's a close reading strategy that shows how texts contain gaps, contradictions, and multiple possibilities. This is why Derrida's works like Speech and Phenomena, Writing and Difference, and Difference became central to modern critical theory. And don't think it stops at literature. Deconstruction influenced law, history, psychoanalysis, anthropology, feminism, even architecture, where a whole style called deconstructivism emerged. So, whenever you hear deconstruction, remember it is less about tearing down meaning and more about showing how meaning is always unstable, always in motion, always open to new readings. Let's decode another fascinating turn in literary theory, the Yale School. Now, don't confuse this with an actual department or syllabus at Yale. The term Yale School is more of a nickname used to describe a group of critics and philosophers who brought Jacques Derrida's ideas of deconstruction into the American classroom during the late 20th century. Pause here and think about this. How did Derrida's French philosophy travel all the way into Anglo-American criticism? The answer is the Yale critics. They applied deconstruction to literature and permanently reshaped the way texts were studied in universities. Now, here's the part you must note carefully. This has been asked in exams several times. The main figures of the Yale School were Shoshana Feldman, Paul de Man, Geoffrey Hartman, J. Hillis Miller, and Harold Bloom. Can you recall at least three of them? This list is extremely important. Each of these scholars used deconstruction in their own way. Paul de Man focused on the rhetoric of language, showing how grammar and meaning never perfectly align. Geoffrey Hartman studied romantic poetry through a deconstructive lens, while J. Hillis Miller applied it to narrative structures. Shoshana Feldman blended psychoanalysis and feminism into her readings. And Harold Bloom, who later became famous for his theories on influence and the Western canon, actually began within this very deconstructive circle. Now here's the golden trick. What made the Yale School so important is that it institutionalized deconstruction in the American academy. In other words, it made Derrida's philosophy not just a European idea but a central force in Anglo-American literary criticism. Of course, this created controversy too, since many traditional scholars resisted the emphasis on paradox, undecidability, and endless interpretation. Pause here and note this down. The Yale School is crucial for UGC NET because it shows how Derrida's theories moved from philosophy into literary criticism. Remember the 5 names, remember their focus areas, and remember that this school stands at the heart of deconstruction's American journey. Let's decode one of the most challenging yet fascinating philosophers of the 20th century, Martin Heidegger. Born in 1889 and living until 1976, Heidegger reshaped how we think about existence itself. His great work, Being and Time, published in 1927, introduced a term that has become central to philosophy, Dasein. And pause here because this very term, being there, was asked in exam. So keep it sharp in your notes. Now, what does Dasein mean? Heidegger said it refers to the uniquely human way of existing. Unlike abstract theories, Dasein is about lived experience, what he called being in the world. Can you recall how Descartes divided mind and body? Heidegger wasn't interested in that dualism. Instead, he wanted to uncover the meaning of being itself through a phenomenological lens. Here's the golden trick. Heidegger also redefined the idea of truth. For him, truth was not just a simple match between statement and reality. Instead, he spoke of truth as unconcealment. This means that truth is about revealing, about letting things show themselves. And note this carefully because truth as unconcealment has been asked in exam too. Pause and think. Doesn't this sound like the root of deconstruction? You're right. Jacques Derrida, who later developed deconstruction, was deeply influenced by Heidegger. In fact, Derrida borrowed Heidegger's word destruction, meaning the dismantling of old metaphysical structures, and gave it his own twist. Of course, Heidegger's story is not without controversy. In 1933, when he became rector at the University of Freiburg, he openly supported the Nazi Party. This political choice has forever complicated his reputation, and yet, despite this shadow, his philosophical legacy remains towering. So here's what you should lock in your mind. Heidegger's Being and Time, his concept of Dasein, his rethinking of truth as unconcealment, and his massive influence on existentialism, hermeneutics, and post-structuralist thought. His work continues to shape theology, psychology, literary criticism, and philosophy itself. Let's decode a giant of 20th century thought, Edmund Husserl, the founder of phenomenology. Now, here's the surprise. Husserl did not start as a philosopher, but as a mathematician trained under Karl Weierstrass and Leo Königsberger. Later, under Franz Brentano and Karl Stumpf, he turned to philosophy, blending logical precision with deep questions about consciousness. Pause here and note this down. Husserl's biggest contribution was the idea of phenomenological reduction, also called epoche, and this has been asked in exam. What does it mean? It means bracketing or suspending all assumptions about the outside world so that we can focus only on how things appear in consciousness. The goal is to study experience in its purest form without bias. Can you recall Descartes' method of deduction or how natural science uses induction? Husserl's method was different. He believed philosophy should not generalize from data, but instead describe the essences of lived experience. He called this the science of essences, a way to ground all knowledge by returning to immediate experience before abstraction. Now here's the golden trick. At the heart of phenomenology lies intentionality, the idea that consciousness is always directed towards something. We don't just think, we think of something, whether it's an object, a memory, or even a possibility. By analyzing these structures of consciousness, Husserl wanted to give philosophy a solid foundation. And you love this part? Husserl introduced the idea of the Lebenswelt, or the world as lived, meaning the world as we experience it before we reduce it to abstract categories. This distinction is still crucial today, not only in philosophy, but also in psychology, linguistics, and even literary theory. Finally, think of Husserl as the starting point of a powerful chain. Without him, we wouldn't have Heidegger, Merleau-Ponty, Sartre, or even Derrida. Phenomenology began with Husserl's vision, and from there, it reshaped modern thought across disciplines.